The bonded wild. The night Tarek Vos found the creature, rain lashed the jungle canopy like 1,000 whips. Lightning illuminated patches of undergrowth in bursts of stark white, revealing for split seconds what moonlight concealed. He shouldn't have been this deep in the forbidden reaches. No one from the valley settlements ventured beyond the Whispering Falls, but the storm had disoriented him on his herb-gathering expedition. A sound cut through the storm's chaos, a high-pitched whine, pained and desperate. Not the call of any animal Tarek recognized from his 23 years living at the edge of the jungle. The noise drew him forward, machete-parting vines slick with rainwater. In a small clearing, illuminated by another flash of lightning, lay a creature that made Tarek's breath catch. A cub, no larger than a house cat, its midnight blue fur matted with blood. 2 rows of nascent spines ran down its back, and even in its weakened state, Tarek could see the powerful musculature beneath its sleek form. Most distinctive were its eyes, vertical pupils set in irises of molten gold, regarding him with intelligence that seemed impossible in a wild animal. A shadow cat. The apex predator that the Navari tribe whispered about in frightened tones around night fires. The creature whose likeness adorned the ceremonial masks of the tribal elders. And yet, impossibly small, impossibly vulnerable. Near the cub lay the mother's corpse, massive compared to her offspring. Deep gashes across her flank told the story, a fight with another predator, one at the cost of mortal wounds. "You're alone now," Tarek whispered, crouching to examine the cub. "Like me." The creature's growl was barely audible, a vibration more felt than heard. When Tarek extended his hand, the cub sniffed once, then licked his fingers with a rough tongue. Removing his leather vest, Tarek wrapped the cub carefully. "The elders would say I should leave you to the jungle's mercy. That interfering with a shadowcat's fate is blasphemy." He tucked the bundle inside his shirt. "But they've been wrong before. For years passed like water through cupped hands." In a hidden gorge 3 valleys away from the Navari settlement, Tarek had built his sanctuary. A simple dwelling of stone and timber backed against a cliff face, with a training yard bordered by wooden posts. The shadow cat, whom he'd named Nyx, was no longer a cub. Standing nearly 4 feet at the shoulder, with a body length of 7 feet excluding her tail, she had grown into a magnificent creature. Her midnight blue coat now possessed an iridescent quality, shifting to purple and black depending on how light struck it. The dual rows of protective spines along her back had hardened into formidable natural armor. Again, Tarek commanded, holding a staff across his body. Nyx circled him, her movements fluid as water, making no sound despite her 600-pound frame. Her eyes, those uncanny golden orbs, never left his face. Then she struck, a blur of motion too fast for an untrained eye to follow. Tarek pivoted, bringing his staff up to block her pounce. The wood cracked under the impact, but held. He rolled away as Nyx landed, spinning to face her again. "Better," he said, breathing hard. But still predictable from the left. A sound like purring thunder rumbled from Nyx's chest. She understood far more than any animal should. In 4 years, she had learned dozens of verbal commands, hand signals, and tactical formations. More remarkably, she had developed an almost supernatural ability to sense Tarek's intentions before he acted on them. The true nature of their bond remained a mystery. Ancient Navari texts, stolen from the tribal archives before Tarek's self-imposed exile, mentioned shadowcats as sacred beings, connected to the spirit realm. The texts claimed that in past ages, shadowcats chose human companions, creating partnerships that blessed the tribe. But such bonds had been forbidden for generations, deemed too dangerous by Chief Thorn's ancestors. "One more drill, then we eat," Tarek said, reaching for a different weapon. Before he could grasp it, Nyx's head snapped toward the forest edge, her ears flattening against her skull. A low growl built in her throat. "What is it?" Tarek whispered, reaching for his bow. The answer came in the form of a young woman stepping from between 2 ancient trees. She wore the leather and feather garments of the Navari, intricate patterns dyed into the material marking her high status. Her dark hair was braided with blue stones, stones that matched her eyes. Lyanna, daughter of Chief Thorn. She froze at the sight of Nyx, her hand instinctively moving to the knife at her belt. I wouldn't, Tarek warned, placing a calming hand on Nyx's flank. She's faster than you think. By the ancestors, Lyanna breathed. The rumors are true. Tarek Voss, the exile, tamer of beasts. Not tamed, Tarek corrected. Bonded. There's a difference. Lyanna took a tentative step forward. They say you stole knowledge from the sacred archives. That you practice forbidden magic. I learned what your father wanted forgotten. That Shadowcats once worked alongside humans, before the Navari decided to rule through fear rather than partnership. Nyx's growl deepened as Lyanna approached, but at Tarek's subtle hand signal, she relaxed, sitting on her haunches. Impossible, Lyanna whispered. The ceremonial texts say Shadowcats are untamable, spirits of vengeance made flesh. Convenient beliefs for those who want to keep power centralized, Tarek replied. What brings the future chieftain so far from home, alone? Lyanna's composure faltered for a moment. I followed game trails. For days I've felt, drawn in this direction. She gestured toward Nyx. As if something was calling me. The revelation sent a chill through Tarek. The ancient texts mentioned this, a Shadowcat's ability to call those with whom they shared a spirit connection. But why would Nyx call to Lyanna? You shouldn't be here, he said firmly. Return to your father. Tell him nothing of what you've seen. Lyanna's eyes hardened. You don't command me, exile. I am Navari royalty. And this is not Navari land. Here, titles mean nothing. Tarek stepped closer. The tribe cast me out for questioning their ways. What do you think they'll do if they learn their precious heir has been consorting with a Shadowcat handler? The threat hung in the air between them, but Lyanna's gaze drifted back to Nyx with unmistakable fascination. She's beautiful, she said softly. I never imagined they would be so. Intelligent? Gentle? Different from the monsters in your father's stories? Their conversation was interrupted by a low, distinctive call from the forest, a horn signal used by Navari scouts. They followed you, Tarek hissed, grabbing his bow and quiver. No. I came alone, I swear it. Fear flashed across Lyanna's face. Clearly not. Tarek whistled sharply, and Nyx melted into the underbrush, her coloration rendering her nearly invisible. Run back to them. Tell them you got lost. And you? This isn't my first hunting party. Tarek's expression darkened. Go. Now. 3 weeks later, flames engulfed the night sky above the Navari village. Warriors ran between wooden structures, shouting commands as women and children fled toward the central longhouse. At the village edge, massive shapes moved in the darkness, razorbacks, boar-like creatures the size of bulls, with tusks that could disembowel a man with a single swipe. Chief Thorn, a broad-shouldered man with silver streaking his black hair, directed the defense from the elevated platform before his dwelling. Form a line. Drive them back toward the river. A warrior approached, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. Chief, there are too many. The razorbacks have never hunted in packs this large before. Stand your ground. Thorn roared. The ancestors will protect us. As if in answer to his declaration, a blood-chilling roar split the night, not the guttural sound of the razorbacks, but something higher, more feline. A shadow detached itself from the darkness beyond the firelight, moving with impossible speed. Nyx crashed into the lead razorback, her claws finding purchase on the beast's armored hide. With terrifying efficiency, she locked her jaws around its throat and twisted, severing its spine. Before the creature had fully collapsed, she was airborne again, landing among 3 more razorbacks, spines bristling along her back. The village warriors stood transfixed as the shadow cat tore through the invading beasts. Among the razorbacks, panic spread. These creatures had never encountered a predator that could challenge them. From the tree-line emerged a figure, bow drawn. Tarek systematically picked off the beasts attempting to flank Nyx, each arrow finding an eye or throat with unerring accuracy. Within minutes, the tide had turned. The remaining razorbacks retreated, leaving their dead behind. In the sudden quiet, Nyx returned to Tarek's side, her muzzle dark with blood. Chief Thorn descended from his platform, flanked by warriors with spears leveled at the newcomers. "Exile," he spat the word. "You dare return?" "Father," Liana stepped forward, positioning herself between the warriors and Tarek. "He saved us. The shadow cat saved us." "Abomination," one of the tribal elders hissed. "He has corrupted a sacred beast, turned it against its nature." Tarek stood his ground, one hand resting on Nyx's back. "Your traditions are based on lies, Thorn. Shadowcats were never meant to be feared from afar, they were partners to the greatest Navari warriors of old." "Blasphemy!" The elder raised his staff. "No," a new voice interrupted. From the crowd emerged an ancient woman, her face lined with the passage of countless seasons. Grandmother Zora, the tribe's oldest living member. "The exile speaks truth I have long suspected." A murmur ran through the gathered Navari as Zora approached Nyx without fear. The shadow cat sniffed the old woman's outstretched hand, then bowed her head in a gesture of acceptance. "The ancient cave paintings," Zora continued, "show our ancestors hunting alongside beasts like this one. It was only in Chief Oren's time, your grandfather, Thorn, that the partnership was forbidden." Chief Thorn's face darkened with rage. "You defend this? This perversion of nature?" "I defend truth," Zora replied calmly. "And tonight, this perversion saved Navari lives." Thorn looked from the old woman to his daughter, then to the destruction the razorbacks had caused. Finally, his gaze settled on Tarek and Nyx. "You will leave by dawn," he declared. "Take your beast and go. If you return, my warriors will kill you both." "Father!" Liana protested. "Silence. The exile has shown his power tonight, a power that threatens everything we have built. I will not allow it in my village." As the warriors closed around their chief, Tarek backed away, Nyx at his side. His eyes met Liana's across the space between them, a silent communication passing between them. This was not over. It was merely beginning. At the edge of the firelight, Tarek whispered to his companion, "Come, Nyx. We've shown them what they fear. Soon, we'll show them what they need." With that, man and Shadowcat vanished into the darkness, leaving behind a village shaken to its core, and a young woman whose path had suddenly become clear. The midnight frost crunched beneath Tarek's boots as he made his way along the narrow ridge. 6 months in the outer territories had hardened him further, his face now weathered, his frame leaner but stronger. Beside him, Nyx moved like a liquid shadow, her breath making small clouds in the frigid air. The Wraith Mountains lived up to their name, with perpetual mist clinging to jagged peaks that seemed to float disconnected from the earth. It was a harsh place, but also a sanctuary. Here, far beyond the reach of Navari hunting parties, Tarek had established a new life. "Hold," he whispered as Nyx's ears suddenly swiveled forward. The shadow cat froze, muscles tensed beneath her iridescent coat. Through the mist emerged 3 creatures, frost stalkers, wolf-like predators with crystalline growths protruding from their shoulders. In lowlands, they would be fearsome opponents. Here, in their territory, they were nearly unstoppable. Tarek unsheathed his machete, now notched from countless battles. "Defensive formation," he murmured. Nyx circled behind him, creating a 2-front defense. For a moment, predator and prey assessed one another. Then the lead stalker charged. Tarek sidestepped the attack, bringing his blade down across the creature's flank. The stalker yelped, blood spattering the snow, but its companions were already advancing. One leapt for Tarek's throat while the other circled toward Nyx. The shadow cat met her attacker with a roar that echoed across the mountainside. Claws extended, she caught the stalker mid-leap, both creatures tumbling across the rocky ground in a furious tangle of limbs and teeth. Tarek barely had time to register his companion's fight before the second stalker was upon him. Its jaws snapped inches from his face as he held it back with his forearm pressed against its throat. The creature's weight drove him to one knee in the snow. "Nyx," he called out, feeling the stalker's hot breath against his skin. A blur of midnight blue crashed into the stalker, knocking it away from Tarek. Nyx stood over the prone creature, her jaws clamped around its throat. A quick twist ended the struggle. The remaining stalker, seeing its pack defeated, retreated into the mist. Tarek rose shakily, examining a shallow gash on his arm. "That was too close," he muttered, retrieving a small pouch from his belt and applying a greenish paste to the wound. Nyx approached, blood matting the fur around her muzzle. She bumped her head against his chest, a rumbling purr vibrating through her body. "I know," Tarek said, running his fingers along her spine. "We can't keep living like this forever." As if in answer to his words, a sound carried through the mountain air, the distinctive three-note call of a Navari scout horn. Tarek stiffened. Nyx's ears flattened against her skull. "They wouldn't come this far," he whispered. "Not even Thorn's best hunters." The horn sounded again, closer. Not a hunting call, but a signal used to locate separated party members. "Stay hidden," Tarek commanded, drawing his bow. Nyx melted into the shadows of a nearby outcropping, only her golden eyes visible in the darkness. Minutes passed as Tarek waited, arrow nocked. Finally, a figure appeared on the path below, slender, moving with practiced stealth. Even bundled against the cold, he recognized the graceful stride. "Liana?" He lowered his bow, disbelief coloring his voice. The Navari princess looked up, startled. Her blue eyes widened with relief. "Tarek. Thank the ancestors. What are you doing here? How did you find us?" She climbed the last few feet to his position, breathing hard. "I've been tracking you for days. The tribal hunters say this region is uninhabitable, so I guessed you might hide here. You came alone? Through Froststalker territory?" A small smile touched her lips. "I'm not the pampered princess you might remember." Nyx emerged from her hiding place, approaching Liana with cautious steps. To Tarek's surprise, the shadow cat made a chirping sound he'd only heard her use with him, a greeting reserved for those she trusted. Liana extended her hand, palm up. "Hello again, beautiful one." "Something's wrong," Tarek said, watching the interaction with confusion. "Why are you here, Liana?" Her expression darkened. "The Kora tribe has moved into the valley. They bring weapons we've never seen, metal that gleams like water, bows that shoot farther than any Navari has crafted. Their numbers grow daily. The Kora are nomads. They've never settled in one place for more than a moon cycle. This is different. Their leader, a warlord named Riven, has declared our lands now belong to him. 2 villages have already fallen." Tarek absorbed this information with growing dread. "And your father?" "Prepares for war, but..." She hesitated. "Our warriors are no match for theirs. We will be destroyed. So you've come to ask for my help? The exile your father banished?" "I've come because grandmother Zora insisted. She's been studying the ancient texts since you left, the complete archives, not just the portions the elders allowed. She found something." From within her coat, Liana withdrew a leather-bound scroll. Unrolling it carefully, she revealed illustrations that made Tarek's breath catch, detailed depictions of humans riding shadow cats into battle, their enemies fleeing before them. "The bonded riders," she said softly. "When the Navari were threatened by invaders long ago, it was the Shadowcat riders who saved them, humans who had formed spiritual bonds with apex predators. Tarek studied the illustrations, recognition dawning. The training techniques I discovered. They're only the beginning of what's possible. Zora believes you and Nyx may be the first true bond in 10 generations. Liana's gaze was intense. She also believes I may share the potential. That's why you followed us that day. Why Nyx called to you. A distant horn blast interrupted their conversation, not a Navari signal. The Korra, Liana whispered. Their scouting parties range farther each day. Tarek looked from Liana to Nyx, then to the valleys below, where his former people faced extinction. Tell me about this warlord, he said finally. The Navari War Council gathered in Chief Thorn's longhouse, their faces grim by torchlight. Maps spread across a large table showed Korra encampments advancing steadily toward the main settlement. Their forward scouts reached the Serpent River yesterday, a scarred warrior reported. 500 fighters, at least. Chief Thorn, looking older than when Tarek had last seen him, shook his head. We have barely 200 who can wield weapons. Then we abandon the village, an elder suggested. Retreat to the high caves as our ancestors did during the Great Famine. And surrender generations of labor? Thorn's fist struck the table. Our homes, our fields, our sacred sites. The argument died as the longhouse door swung open. A cold wind swept in, followed by Liana. Behind her came Tarek, his presence drawing gasps from the assembled council. Exile. Thorn growled, reaching for his ceremonial spear. You dare. His words faltered as Nyx padded into the longhouse, her massive form dwarfing the warriors who scrambled away from her path. The Shadowcat's golden eyes surveyed the room with unsettling intelligence. Father, Liana stepped forward. I brought them here. We need them. I would rather die than accept help from this betrayer of traditions. Grandmother Zora rose from her seat in the shadows. Then you will die, Thorn. And with you, all the Navari. The old woman approached Nyx without fear, placing a withered hand on the Shadowcat's head. Our ancestors knew what you have forgotten, that strength comes not from isolation, but from partnership. Murmurs rippled through the council as warriors and elders alike watched the interaction with disbelief. The Korra bring weapons of a kind we have never faced, Zora continued. But they have never faced a Shadowcat rider. The ancient texts speak of a single bonded pair turning the tide of battles against armies 10 times our size. Thorn's face had gone ashen. Those are children's tales. No. Tarek stepped forward. I've spent years studying the texts you tried to suppress. The bond is real, and it's more powerful than you can imagine. As if to emphasize his point, Nyx growled, the sound reverberating through the longhouse like distant thunder. Several warriors instinctively reached for weapons. Show them, Tarek said to the Shadowcat. To the council's astonishment, Nyx sat on her haunches, then bowed her head toward Chief Thorn, a gesture of respect no wild predator would ever display. The Korra will reach our gates within 3 days, Tarek continued. You can cling to your pride and watch your people perish, or you can accept that your ancestors understood truths you've forgotten. The silence stretched, broken only by the crackle of torches. Finally, Chief Thorn spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of decision. What do you propose, Exile? Dawn painted the valley crimson as Korra warriors assembled before the Navari settlement. Their ranks stretched across the open ground, 100 strong, armed with steel weapons and padded armor. Behind them, wheeled platforms carried strange devices Tarek recognized from Liana's descriptions, launchers that could hurl spears farther than any human arm. At their center rode Warlord Riven, distinguished by his helmet adorned with the horns of conquered enemies. He raised a hand, and the Korra formation halted 200 paces from the village palisade. Behind the wooden walls, the Navari prepared for what many believed would be their final stand. Warriors took positions along the palisade while those too young or old to fight gathered in the central cave system with provisions. Tarek stood atop the main gate, Nyx at his side. The Shadowcat's muscles rippled with anticipation beneath her midnight coat. "Remember," he said quietly, "we need Riven alive if possible. A headless army might still destroy the village out of confusion." Nyx's ear twitched in acknowledgement. Below them, Liana organized the defensive line, her authority unquestioned despite her youth. The past 3 days had transformed her from heir to commander, her strategic mind proving sharper than even her father's. A Korra horn blasted across the valley. From their lines, a single rider approached, not Riven, but a herald bearing a white pennant. "Navari," the herald called when within earshot. "Warlord Riven offers you mercy. Surrender your lands and weapons, pledge fealty to the Korra, and you may live as servants." Chief Thorn emerged from the gate, standing before his village with dignity. "These lands have belonged to the Navari since time beyond memory. We will not surrender what is ours by birthright." "Then you will perish." The herald turned his mount. "Prepare to join your ancestors, old man." As the herald rejoined the Korra lines, Riven raised his war spear. Behind him, the spear launchers were being loaded and aimed. Tarek glanced at Chief Thorn. "Now?" The older man hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Now." Tarek placed his hand on Nyx's flank, closing his eyes. The bond between them had deepened through their exile. What began as partnership had evolved into something closer to shared consciousness. He could feel her heart beating in time with his own, her senses becoming extensions of his awareness. "Let them see what they face," he whispered. Nyx threw back her head and roared, a sound that carried across the valley with supernatural force. Birds exploded from distant trees. The very air seemed to vibrate. Before the echo had faded, Tarek vaulted onto her back. The Shadowcat leapt from the palisade, landing with impossible grace despite her size. Together, they charged toward the Korra lines. Confusion rippled through the enemy ranks. Many had heard stories of Shadowcats but had never seen one, much less witnessed a human riding one into battle. Some warriors broke formation, backing away from the approaching nightmare. "Hold!" Riven shouted to his troops. "It's one beast. One man." But as Tarek and Nyx closed the distance, something remarkable happened. The Shadowcat's form seemed to shimmer, an aura of blue-black energy surrounding her. Her eyes blazed like twin suns, and her speed increased beyond what any natural creature could achieve. The first line of Korra warriors raised spears, but Nyx was upon them before they could throw. She moved through their ranks like smoke through fingers, her claws finding gaps in armor, her weight bowling men over. Tarek wielded his machete from her back, the blade flashing in the morning light. From the village gates, a war cry rose as Navari warriors surged forward, led by Liana. They had coordinated this moment carefully, the shock of Tarek's charge providing cover for a flanking attack. Riven bellowed orders, trying to reorganize his scattered front line. "Launch! Launch now!" The spear throwers released with a thunderous crack. Projectiles arced through the air toward the Navari charge. In that crucial moment, Tarek directed Nyx toward the launchers. The Shadowcat gathered herself and leapt, a distance no natural predator could manage, landing directly among the machines. Her claws tore through wooden frames while Tarek engaged the operators. At the heart of the battle, Liana found herself face to face with a Korra captain. The man swung a heavy axe at her head, but she ducked beneath it, her own spear finding the gap beneath his armpit. As he fell, she caught movement from the corner of her eye, Riven himself, charging toward her on horseback. The warlord's spear thrust forward. Liana twisted away, but not quickly enough. The blade opened a gash along her side. She stumbled, falling to one knee. Riven wheeled his horse around for a killing blow. "Die, Navari witch!" A streak of midnight blue crashed into the warlord's mount. Horse and rider went down in a tangle of limbs. Nyx stood over the fallen warlord, one massive paw pressed against his chest, pinning him to the earth. Tarek dismounted, placing the tip of his blade at Riven's throat. "Signal your warriors to stand down," he commanded. Around them, the battle had shifted dramatically. With their leader captured and their launchers destroyed, Korra discipline was crumbling. Navari fighters pressed the advantage, driving wedges into enemy formations. Riven's eyes burned with hatred, but he gave a short nod. His horn-bearer sounded the retreat call. Gradually, the fighting subsided as Korra warriors disengaged, backing toward their camp. Tarek helped Liana to her feet, examining her wound. "Not too deep," he murmured. "But it needs treatment." She gripped his arm. "You did it. The legends were true." "We did it," he corrected, looking toward where Chief Thorn approached, blood spattered across his ceremonial armor. "All of us." The celebration lasted 3 days. Korra prisoners were treated with respect but firm boundaries. Those who wished to join the Navari could stay, while others would be escorted to the borderlands and released. Riven himself remained under guard, his fate undecided. On the 4th night, the tribal council convened in the longhouse. This time, Tarek sat among them, Nyx resting behind his chair. Liana occupied her traditional place at her father's right hand, her wound healing well under grandmother Zora's care. "The Korra will return," one elder warned. "Perhaps not this season, but eventually. We must prepare." Chief Thorn nodded gravely. "Which is why I have reached a decision." He turned to Tarek. "Exile no more. I offer you full restoration to the tribe, with honors befitting a warrior who saved his people." A murmur of approval ran through the council. "There is more," Thorn continued. "The ancient texts speak of the bonded riders as guardians of the tribe. I propose we restore this tradition." His gaze moved to his daughter. "Grandmother Zora believes Liana shares the potential for the bond. There may be others among our young." Tarek looked at Liana, seeing in her eyes the same mix of anticipation and uncertainty he had felt years ago when he first found Nyx. "The bond cannot be forced," he said carefully. "The Shadowcat chooses as much as the human. But I will teach what I know." "Then it is decided," Thorn declared. "We will send scouts to locate Shadowcat territories. Under Tarek's guidance, we will relearn the ways of our ancestors." As the council dispersed, Liana approached Tarek and Nyx in the torchlit clearing outside. "My father never apologizes directly," she said with a small smile. "This is as close as he comes." "I didn't do this for his approval," Tarek replied, scratching behind Nyx's ears. The Shadowcat purred, the sound like distant thunder. "I know." Liana hesitated, then placed her hand atop his on Nyx's head. "You did it because it was right." A strange sensation passed between them, warmth that traveled up their arms and settled in their chests. Nyx's purr intensified, her golden eyes half closing with pleasure. "Do you feel that?" Liana whispered. Tarek nodded, understanding dawning. "The beginning of your bond. She's accepting you. What happens now?" He gazed toward the mountains where he had spent his exile, where Nyx had grown from vulnerable cub to magnificent predator, where he had learned truths long forgotten. "Now," he said, "we rebuild what was lost. Not just defenses or fighting techniques, but understanding. The world doesn't divide neatly into wild and tame, predator and prey." He looked down at Nyx, meeting those intelligent golden eyes. "Sometimes the fiercest creatures are also the most loyal. Sometimes what we fear most is what we need to survive." Liana's eyes reflected the torchlight, determination and hope mingled in their depths. "Teach me everything." As night settled over the Navari village, a new Shadowcat's roar echoed from the distant hills, a wild call answered by Nyx's thunderous reply. The age of the bonded riders had returned, and with it, a future where ancient wisdom and new courage would reshape the world.